Marcus Cole woke up in darkness. His head hurt and his mouth was dry. The last thing he remembered was sitting in his apartment in Chicago, eating leftover pizza and watching a basketball game. Now he was somewhere else, somewhere that did not feel like Earth at all. A light appeared above him. It was cold and blue, nothing like sunlight. Marcus stood up slowly and looked around. He was standing on a flat stone surface, perfectly circular, about 50 meters wide. Beyond the edge of the circle, there was nothing but empty space and distant stars. He was on some kind of platform floating in the void. Then he saw them, thousands of them, creatures of every shape and size, sitting in viewing platforms that circled the arena like a stadium. Some had too many eyes. Some had no eyes at all. Some were made of light. Some were made of shadow. They were all watching him. A voice spoke inside his head. It was not in English, but somehow he understood every word. Human designated Marcus Cole. You have been selected to represent your species in the Crucible. The rules are simple. Survive what comes next, and humanity will be granted membership in the Galactic Council. Fail, and your species will be contained on your homeworld forever. The trial begins now. Before Marcus could say anything, the first monster appeared. It came out of nowhere. One moment the arena was empty, and the next moment there was a creature standing 20 meters away from him. It looked like a giant snake, but its body was covered in metal plates, and its mouth was full of teeth that glowed with heat. Steam rose from its body. Its eyes were red and hungry. Marcus had no weapon. He was wearing the same clothes he had been wearing at home. Jeans, a t-shirt, and sneakers. Nothing that could help him fight a monster. The snake charged. It was fast, faster than anything that Sci should be. Marcus dove to the side and felt the heat of its body as it passed him. The stone floor cracked where it had struck. If that hit had landed, he would be dead. Marcus ran. There was nowhere to run to, but he ran anyway. His mind was racing. He needed a plan. He needed to think. The snake turned and came at him again. This time, Marcus waited until the last moment, then jumped over its head. He landed on its back and grabbed one of the metal plates. The metal was hot, burning his hands, but he held on. The snake thrashed and spun, trying to throw him off. Marcus held on with everything he had. He could smell his own skin burning. The pain was incredible, but he did not let go. He saw a gap between two of the metal plates near the creature's head. The flesh underneath was exposed. Marcus drove his elbow into that gap with all his strength. Once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th strike, something broke. The snake screamed and collapsed. Marcus fell off its body and lay on the stone floor, breathing hard. His hands were ruined. The skin was gone from his palms and his fingers were blistered. But he was alive. The crowd above him made sounds. Some were cheering. Some were making noises he could not understand. But most of them were silent, watching, waiting. The second monster appeared. This one was different. It looked like a wolf, but it was the size of a car, and its fur was made of something that looked like glass. When it moved, the glass fur made a sound like wind chimes. Beautiful and terrible at the same time. Marcus got to his feet. His hands screamed in pain, but he ignored them. He had to focus. He had to survive. The glass wolf was smart. It did not charge blindly like the snake. It circled him, watching, learning. Marcus circled too, keeping the dead snake's body between them. He needed time to think. Time to find a weakness. The wolf attacked without warning. It leaped over the snake's body and came down on top of Marcus. He threw himself backward and felt the glass claws tear through his shirt and cut into his chest. Not deep, but enough to draw blood. Marcus grabbed a piece of broken stone from the floor. It was not much of a weapon, but it was something. The wolf came at him again. This time, Marcus did not dodge. He stepped forward and drove the stone into the wolf's open mouth. The wolf bit down hard, shattering the stone. But pieces of rock went down its throat. The creature choked and stumbled. Marcus did not hesitate. He grabbed a broken metal plate from the dead snake and swung it like a club. The sharp edge cut through the glass fur and into the flesh beneath. The wolf fell. It took Marcus 3 more strikes to make sure it stayed down. 2 monsters dead. Alien to go. The third monster was a cloud of darkness that moved like smoke and cut like knives. Marcus discovered that it could not stand light, so he used the glowing teeth from the dead snake as torches to drive it back before crushing its core. The fourth was a creature made entirely of sound. Marcus could not see it, but he could hear it. He defeated it by staying perfectly still and waiting for it to come close, then destroying the small crystal at its center. The fifth was a giant spider with legs like swords. The sixth was a swarm of flying insects that ate metal. The seventh was something that looked almost human, but moved wrong and had too many joints. Each fight was harder than the last. Each monster was stronger, smarter, more deadly. Marcus used everything he had. He used the bodies of dead monsters as weapons and shields. He used the terrain of the arena. He used tricks and traps and desperate gambits that should not have worked, but somehow did. By the 10th monster, Marcus was barely standing. His body was covered in cuts and burns and bruises. He had broken ribs and a dislocated shoulder that he had popped back into place himself. His vision was blurry and his thoughts were slow, but he kept fighting. The aliens in the stands had stopped making any sounds at all. They watched in complete silence as this small, fragile, impossible creature from an unknown world refused to die. Monster after monster fell. 11, 12, 13, 14. Marcus stopped thinking about winning. He stopped thinking about humanity or the Galactic Council or anything beyond the next few seconds. There was only the fight. Only survival. Only one more breath, one more step, one more swing. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. When the 20th monster appeared, Marcus was on his knees. He could not stand anymore. One of his arms was completely useless, hanging at his side. He was bleeding from a dozen wounds. His vision was fading in and out. The 20th monster was the worst of all. It was called the Omniphage, a mass of hungry flesh that had destroyed entire planets. It had no weakness, no vulnerability, no way to defeat it. Marcus looked at the Omniphage and smiled. Blood covered his teeth. "Come on then," he whispered. "Let's finish this." The fight lasted 11 minutes. Later, the aliens would watch the recordings over and over, trying to understand how he had won. They would never figure it out. Some things could not be explained. Some victories came from a place beyond logic and reason. When the Omniphage finally collapsed into a pool of dead flesh, Marcus Cole stood alone in the center of the arena. He was the only thing still breathing on that bloody stone floor. The arena was silent for a long moment. Then Marcus fell unconscious. He had survived the 20, the first being in 10,000 years to do so, and somewhere above him, hidden in the viewing stands, the Council of 17 watched with expressions that were not celebration, not admiration, but something else entirely, something that looked very much like fear. Marcus woke up in a white room. The ceiling was smooth and curved, like the inside of an egg. There were no windows and no visible doors. The air smelled clean, almost too clean, like it had never been breathed before. He tried to sit up and discovered that his body actually worked. The pain was gone. His hands, which had been burned to the bone, were now smooth and unmarked. His broken ribs felt solid. His shoulder moved without any problem. Whatever technology these aliens had, it was far beyond anything on Earth. A section of the wall slid open, and a creature entered the room. It was tall and thin, with skin that looked like polished silver. Its eyes were large and dark, and when it spoke, its mouth did not move. The words appeared directly in Marcus's mind. "You are awake. Good. Your body has been repaired. You will need rest, but you will recover fully within a few days." "Where am I?" Marcus asked. "You are in the medical facility of the Council Station. You have been unconscious for 3 of your Earth days." 3 days. Marcus remembered the arena, the monsters, the blood. He remembered winning, though the details of the final fight were blurry. "What happens now?" he asked. "That is for the Council to decide. For now, you will rest. Visitors will come. You are the first of your kind to survive the Crucible in 10,000 years. Many wish to meet you." The silver creature left without another word. Marcus was alone again. Over the next 2 weeks, visitors came every day. Ambassadors and scientists and curious observers from dozens of different species. They all wanted to know the same things. How had he survived? What was the secret of human strength? Were all humans like him? Marcus answered their questions carefully. He smiled and played humble. He told them about human determination and willpower. He talked about adrenaline and survival instinct. He gave them answers that sounded good but said nothing important. What he did not tell them was that he was watching them just as closely as they were watching him, and what he saw did not make sense. The aliens treated him with respect, even admiration. They called him champion and survivor and other titles in languages he could not pronounce. But underneath the polite words and formal ceremonies, Marcus sensed something else. They were afraid of him, not in the way someone might fear a dangerous animal. This was different, deeper. They looked at him the way someone might look at a lit fuse, wondering when the bomb would explode. At night, when he was alone in his quarters, Marcus accessed the station's information network. The Council had given him limited access as a courtesy to a trial survivor. He was supposed to use it to learn about galactic culture and history. Instead, he used it to study the recordings of his own fight. He watched the footage over and over, looking for details he had missed while fighting for his life, and he found them. The Krell Shadow Hunters. Marcus remembered fighting 3 of them at once. Deadly pack predators that hunted in perfect coordination. Except they had not. In the recording, Marcus could see that they had attacked one at a time, leaving long gaps between strikes. Almost like they were following rules. Almost like they were holding back. The acid serpent had charged him in a straight line, when it could have cornered him against the edge of the arena. The glass wolf had waited 3 seconds before pouncing when any real predator would have struck immediately. The omniphage, the most dangerous of all, had loomed over his broken body for nearly 5 seconds before attacking. Omniphages did not hesitate. They consumed. Everyone knew that, but this one had waited. Marcus felt cold as the realization hit him. The monsters had been holding back. Not all of them, not completely, but enough. Just enough to give him a chance. Just enough to make it possible for him to win. Why would they do that? Unless the fight had been designed to be survivable. Unless the Council had wanted him to win. But that did not make sense either. Because Marcus remembered the faces of the Council members when he had delivered the final blow. He remembered Ambassador Velkoth, the crystalline being who seemed to be the leader. He remembered the expression that had flickered across her face for just a moment. Disappointment. She had not wanted him to win. But the monsters had been programmed to let him win. 2 opposite intentions. Which one was real? Marcus kept digging. He searched the archives for records of past trials. He found thousands of them. Species after species, each one sending their champion into the crucible. Most of them died. That made sense, but some of them won. According to the records, 88 species had survived the 20 in the past 10,000 years. 88 champions who had done what Marcus had done. They should be the heroes of the galaxy. Their species should be major powers in the galactic. Council. Marcus searched for them. He could not find a single one. No ambassadors. No colonies. No trading posts. No cultural records. No mention of them at all beyond the trial archives. 88 species had passed the ultimate test, and then vanished from history like they had never existed. The species that failed the trials were contained, quarantined on their homeworlds, and forbidden from space travel. That was the official punishment for failure. But what happened to the species that succeeded? Marcus was still thinking about this when his door opened without warning. No chime, no request for entry. Just the wall sliding apart to reveal Ambassador Velkoth herself. She stood in the doorway, her body made of living crystal that bent light in strange ways. Looking at her too long made Marcus's eyes hurt. But he did not look away. "You have been accessing restricted files, Mr. Cole," she said. Her voice was like wind through glass wind chimes. Marcus did not bother denying it. What happened to the species that won? They were elevated, transcended, joined with the greater whole. That is not an answer. Velkoth moved into the room. The door closed behind her. For a long moment she said nothing, just studied Marcus with those strange crystal eyes. "You are correct," she finally said. "It is not an answer. It is a deflection. But it is all I am permitted to tell you." "Then tell me something you are permitted to say. Why was I chosen for the trials? Why me specifically?" Velkoth made a sound that might have been a sigh. "The Council has been watching humanity for a long time, Marcus Cole. Watching you specifically. You were not selected randomly. Then why was I selected?" "Because you asked the wrong questions." Marcus frowned. "What do you mean?" Velkoth turned toward the door, preparing to leave. Then she stopped and spoke without looking at him. "Every other champion who survived the 20 asked the same questions afterward. They asked about rewards, about power, about what humanity would gain from winning. They wanted to know what they had earned." She turned back to face him. "You are the first survivor who asked what happened to the others. You are the first survivor who looked at victory and saw something wrong." Marcus felt his heart beating faster. "What are you trying to tell me?" "The Crucible was never about survival, Mr. Cole. Any species that fights the 20 has already failed the test." She walked through the door, which opened for her without a sound. "You were supposed to refuse," she said. And then she was gone. Marcus sat alone in his quarters for a long time after that. The white walls seemed smaller now. The clean air felt harder to breathe. He had won the Crucible. He had done the impossible. He had proved humanity's worth. But he was beginning to suspect that winning was the worst thing he could have done. The wrong questions. Velkoth had said he asked the wrong questions. But now he realized that she was wrong about that, too. He was asking exactly the right questions, and the answers were going to change everything. The council chamber was the largest room Marcus had ever seen. It was carved into the heart of a moon, a vast sphere of polished stone lit by lights that floated like tiny suns. The ceiling was so far above that clouds had formed there, drifting slowly across the artificial sky. 17 platforms rose from the floor in a circle around the center of the chamber. On each platform sat one of the council members, the oldest beings in the galaxy, the rulers of everything. Marcus stood in the center of the circle, feeling very small and very human. The beings around him were not like anything he had seen before. Some had bodies, some did not. One was a cloud of shifting equations that hurt to look at directly. One was a forest of crystalline trees that moved and whispered to itself. One was darkness given shape, a hole in reality that somehow thought and spoke. Velkoth was there, sitting on her platform of living crystal. She watched Marcus with an expression he could not read. The oldest being spoke first. It was the cloud of equations, and its voice was like mathematics given sound. Human designated Marcus Cole. You have requested an audience with this council. You have been granted one opportunity to speak. Choose your words carefully. Marcus looked around the circle. 17 beings who had existed for longer than human civilization. 17 minds that had made decisions affecting trillions of lives. And they were all looking at him. He took a deep breath and began. I know about the archives. I know what happens to species that survive the crucible. I know that 88 civilizations have been destroyed because they did what I did. Because they fought. Because they survived. The council members did not react. They watched him with ancient patience. You designed the test to find predators, Marcus continued. Species that would fight instead of surrender. Species that would kill to survive. And you decided that those species were too dangerous to exist. That is correct, the equation being said. Predator species threaten galactic stability. Their expansion leads inevitably to war, conquest, and destruction. We have seen it happen countless times. It is better to end them quickly than to allow them to grow. Marcus nodded. I understand the logic. I even understand why you think you are right. But you are wrong. Silence filled the chamber. The equation being flickered with something that might have been surprise. Explain, it said. Marcus pointed at the crystal trees. The living darkness, the beings of light and metal and pure thought. Look at yourselves. All of you. You are predators too. Every species that ever climbed to the top of a food chain is a predator. Every species that survived long enough to develop intelligence did it by being more dangerous than the things trying to kill them. You think you are different from us because you have evolved past violence. But you have not. You are still killing. You are just doing it from a distance now. The darkness being stirred. His voice was like the absence of sound. We do not kill for territory or resources. We kill for peace. Does that make the dead any less dead? Marcus asked. Does it comfort the children who burn when you sterilize their homeworld? You tell yourselves that you are protectors, but you are just predators who hunt with policy instead of teeth. The equation being pulsed with agitation. You are deflecting. The question is not whether we are predators. The question is whether humanity is too dangerous to exist. No, Marcus said. That is not the question at all. He walked slowly around the center of the chamber, looking at each council member in turn. I watched the recordings of my fight in the crucible. The monsters were holding back. They were programmed to give me a chance. You wanted to see if I would refuse to fight. If I would choose peace even when it meant death. That is correct, Volkov said. We hoped you would show that humanity was capable of restraint. But you set up the test wrong, Marcus said. You put me in an arena with monsters that wanted to kill me. You gave me no information, no context, no choice. And then you judged me for fighting to survive. He stopped in front of the equation being. That is not a test of who we are. That is a test of what any living thing will do when threatened. Put any of you in that arena with no knowledge and no options, and you would fight too. That is not aggression. That is survival. The living forest rustled and spoke for the first time. Its voice was like wind through leaves. Then how should we judge your species? How can we know if you are a threat? Marcus turned to face the whole council. You cannot. Not with tests. Not with tricks. Not with monsters in an arena. You can only know by watching what we choose to do when we actually have choices. He spread his arms wide. Humanity is violent. I will not deny that. Our history is full of war and cruelty. We have done terrible things to each other. We have built weapons that could destroy our own world. The council members stirred. This was not the defense they had expected. "But that is not all we are," Marcus continued. "We also create beauty. We write music and poetry. We sacrifice ourselves for strangers. We fall in love with people we have never met through words on a page. We dream of things that do not exist, and then we build them." He looked at Velkoth. "You wanted me to refuse to fight. You wanted to see a human choose death over violence. But that is not the choice that matters. The choice that matters is what we do when we have power, when we are safe, when we could be cruel but choose to be kind instead." Marcus walked back to the center of the chamber. "I killed 20 monsters because I thought I had no other option. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should have refused. But that tells you nothing about what humanity will do when we join the galaxy. Because in the arena, we had no choices. Out here, we will have millions of choices. Trillions of choices. Every day, we will choose who we want to be." The equation being flickered. "And if you choose wrong? If humanity spreads across the stars and brings only destruction?" Marcus met its gaze without flinching. "Then you will have to stop us. You will have to fight us. And that is terrifying, I know. We are terrifying. We are the most dangerous thing you have ever found crawling out of a gravity well. I understand why you want to eliminate us now, while we are still small and weak." He paused, then continued. "But that is the coward's choice. That is killing someone because they might someday become a threat. That is murder dressed up as prevention. The darkness being stirred. You would have us take a risk. You would have us trust a species that has given us no reason to trust them." "Yes," Marcus said simply. "That is exactly what I'm asking. Take a risk. Give us a chance. Let us prove what we can become instead of judging us for what we might become." Silence fell over the chamber. The council members looked at each other, communicating in ways that Marcus could not perceive. Finally, the equation being spoke. "You ask us to change a policy that has protected the galaxy for 10,000 years. You ask us to trust a species that won the crucible by killing. You ask us to believe that violence and virtue can exist in the same hearts." "Yes," Marcus said again. "Why should we believe you?" Marcus smiled. It was a tired smile, a human smile, full of pain and hope mixed together. "Because I am standing here asking instead of demanding. Because I came to convince you instead of trying to escape. Because right now, I have nothing to gain from lying. I am one human against a galaxy of power. If you decide to destroy my people, there is nothing I can do to stop you." He spread his hands. "All I can offer you is my words, my honesty, my hope that you are wise enough to see what we could become if you give us the chance." The equation being turned to the rest of the council. "We will deliberate. You will have our answer by morning." Marcus bowed his head. "Thank you." He walked out of the chamber, leaving the rulers of the galaxy to decide the fate of his species. Behind him, 17 ancient minds began to argue about the nature of humanity. And somewhere far away on a small blue planet, 8 billion people went about their lives without any idea that their existence was being debated by beings older than the stars. Marcus could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the faces of the council. He saw Velkoth's expression when she told him the truth. He heard her words playing over and over in his mind. You were supposed to refuse. If fighting was failure, then what was success? If winning was wrong, then what was right? The questions circled in his head like sharks, never stopping, never giving him peace. He got out of bed and walked to the information terminal in his quarters. The screen glowed with soft blue light. His access was still limited, but Marcus had spent his whole life finding ways around limits. On Earth, he had been a software engineer before the aliens took him. He knew how to make computers do things they were not supposed to do. The alien systems were different from human technology, But the basic ideas were the same. Every system had holes. Every network had weak points. The Council had been building their civilization for millions of years. They had forgotten what it was like to face someone who thought differently. Their security was designed to stop species they understood. They did not understand humans. Marcus worked through the night. He found gaps in the security that the aliens had never thought to close. He slipped through barriers that had stood for thousands of years. Not because he was smarter than them, but because he was desperate. And desperate minds see things that comfortable minds miss. By morning, he had access to the deep archives. The secret files that the Council kept hidden from everyone, even their own members. What he found there made him feel sick. The history of the Galactic Council stretched back 10 million years. In that time, they had discovered thousands of intelligent species. Young civilizations just starting to reach for the stars. Each one was tested in the crucible. Each one faced the 20. Most failed. Their champions died in the arena, and their species was quarantined, contained on their homeworlds, forbidden from leaving their solar systems. Stuck at their current level of technology forever. That was bad enough. But it was not the worst part. The species that succeeded were not rewarded. They were not welcomed into the galaxy. Instead, they were marked as dangerous. Predator species. Threats to galactic peace. And they were eliminated. Marcus read the files with growing horror. 88 species had survived the crucible in 10,000 years. All of them had been destroyed within a decade of their victory. Their homeworlds had been sterilized. Their colonies had been wiped clean. Every man, woman, and child had been erased from existence. The Council called it elevation. They called it transcendence. They called it joining the greater whole. It was genocide. The logic was cold and simple. Any species capable of surviving the 20 was too dangerous to be allowed to grow. They would eventually threaten the Council itself. Better to destroy them now, while they were still weak, than to face them later when they were strong. The crucible was not a test of worthiness. It was a filter, a way to identify which species needed to be eliminated before they became a problem. And Marcus had just proven that humanity was one of those species. He sat back from the terminal. Fear, they became a problem, his hands shaking. His mind raced through the possibilities. The Council was planning to destroy Earth. They might already be planning it. Ships could be on their way right now. Weapons that could crack a planet like an egg. Diseases that could wipe out every human in weeks. He had to warn someone. He had to find a way to contact Earth. He had to stop this, but how? He was alone on an alien station surrounded by beings who wanted his species dead. He had no weapons, no allies, no way to send a message home. Marcus took a deep breath and forced himself to think clearly. Panic would not help. He needed a plan. First, he needed more information. The archives had given him the big picture, but he needed details. When was the attack planned? What weapons would they use? Was there any way to stop them? He went back to the terminal and kept searching. What he found next was even more confusing than what he had found. Before that, there was disagreement in the Council. Not all of the 17 agreed with the elimination policy. Some of them had been arguing for centuries that it was wrong. They said that the crucible test was flawed. That fighting ability was not the same as aggression. That some species might be dangerous, but still capable of becoming peaceful. The leader of this group was Ambassador VEL single quotes Koth. Marcus read her arguments with growing surprise. For the past 200 years, Velkoth had been fighting to change the way the Council treated trial survivors. She believed that there should be another option. Not containment. Not elimination. Something else. But she had never been able to convince the CIS majority. Until now. The file showed that the Council had been watching humanity for decades. They had seen human history, the wars, the violence, the weapons. They had expected humans to be the most aggressive species they had ever encountered. But they had also seen other things: art, music, love, sacrifice, acts of incredible cruelty and incredible kindness, sometimes from the same people. Humans were not simple. They could not be easily sorted into categories. Velkoth had argued that humanity should be treated differently. She had convinced the council to modify the Crucible test. They had programmed the monsters to hold back just enough to make survival possible. They had given Marcus a chance that no other champion had ever had. They wanted to see what he would do. If Marcus had refused to fight, he would have proven that humanity was capable of restraint, capable of choosing peace, even when survival seemed impossible. The council would have welcomed humanity as equals, but he had fought. He had killed. He had done exactly what a predator species would do. Now the council was divided. Half of them wanted to eliminate humanity immediately. Half of them wanted to wait and see what Marcus did next. The vote was scheduled for 3 days from now. If the Eliminators won, Earth had maybe a month before the ships arrived. Marcus stared at the screen. His whole species was going to be judged based on what he did in the next 3 days. No. Pressure. He closed the files and tried to think. Velkoth had been helping him. Or at least, she had been trying to. A warning about refusing had come too late to save him from the test. But maybe it was not too late to save humanity. He needed to talk to her. He needed to understand what she wanted, what she expected him to do. As if she had been reading his mind, the door chimed. Marcus told it to open. Velkoth stood in the corridor. Her crystal form seemed dimmer than before, as if she were tired or sad. "You found the archives," she said. "It was not a question. You knew I would. I hoped you would. I also hoped you would understand what you found." Marcus stood up and faced her. "I understand that the Council has been committing genocide for 10,000 years. I understand that my species is next on the list. I understand that I have 3 days to change the minds of beings who have been doing this for longer than humanity has existed." Velkoth made that wind chime sound again. It sounded like sad laughter. "You understand more than any survivor ever has." Most of them never questioned their victory. They celebrated. They made demands. They acted like predators. And they died like predators. And you expect me to be different? I expect nothing, Mr. Cole, but I hope. I have been hoping for a very long time. She moved into the room, the door closing behind her. The council will grant you an audience tomorrow. You will have one chance to speak. One chance to convince them that humanity is worth saving. Marcus felt the weight of her words pressing down on him. And if I fail? Velkoth's crystal body flickered with colors that Marcus could not name. Then you will watch your world burn. And I will watch my last hope die. She turned and walked to the door. Then she stopped and spoke without looking back. The monsters were a test, Marcus. But not the test you thought. They were testing whether humanity could be more than predators. Whether you could see past survival to something greater. And I failed that test. Perhaps. Or perhaps the test is not over yet. Perhaps the real trial is just beginning. She left without another word. Marcus stood alone in his quarters, thinking about tomorrow, thinking about Earth, thinking about all the things he would have to say to convince a council of gods to spare his people. He had faced 20 monsters and survived. This was going to be harder. Marcus did not sleep that night. He sat in his quarters and watched the stars through the window. Somewhere out there, Earth was spinning around its sun. His family was there. His friends. Everyone he had ever known. And they might all be dead by next week. He thought about the council's decision. He had done everything he could. He had spoken from his heart. He had told them the truth about humanity without hiding the dark parts. Now all he could do was wait. The door chimed just before dawn. "Enter," Marcus said. Velkoth walked in. Her crystal body was glowing brighter than Marcus had ever seen it. Colors swirled through her form like northern lights captured in glass. "The council has reached a decision," she said. Marcus stood up. His heart was pounding. "And?" Velkoth made that wind chime sound. For the first time, Marcus realized it was laughter. Joyful laughter. "Come with me. The council wishes to tell you themselves." They walked through the corridors of the station in silence. Marcus tried to read Velkoth's expression, but her alien face gave nothing away. He could not tell if she was happy or sad, hopeful or afraid. The council chamber was the same as before. The 17 platforms. The ancient beings. The impossible scale of it all, but something was different. The atmosphere felt lighter, less hostile. Some of the council members were actually looking at Marcus with something that was not suspicion or fear. The equation being spoke first. "Marcus Cole of Earth, we have deliberated through the night. We have argued and debated and reconsidered everything we thought we knew. And we have reached a conclusion." Marcus held his breath. "For 10,000 years, we have sorted species into 2 categories. Those that failed the crucible were contained. Those that passed were eliminated. We believed this was necessary to protect the galaxy." The being paused. Colors swirled through its mathematical form. "We were wrong." Marcus felt his knees go weak. "Your words last night forced us to confront something we had been avoiding. We created a test that measured only survival instinct. We judged species by their response to immediate threat. But that is not how civilizations behave. That is not what determines whether a species will be a force for good or evil in the galaxy." The living forest spoke next. Its voice was gentler than before. "You showed us that you could be violent, but you also showed us that you could question that violence even while committing it. You survived, but you did not celebrate. You won, but you did not demand rewards. You came to us not with threats, but with arguments. With hope." The darkness being added its voice to the chorus. "We have never seen that before. Every other survivor was exactly what we feared. Aggressive, demanding, dangerous. But you are something else. Something new." Velkoth stepped forward. "The council has voted to create a new category. For the first time in 10,000 years. Marcus stared at her. "A new category?" The equation being spoke again. "You will not be contained. That punishment is for failures, and you did not fail. You will not be eliminated. That policy was for predators who showed no capacity for growth, and you have shown such capacity." It pulsed with light. "Instead, you will be watched." Marcus frowned. "Watched?" "Humanity will be allowed to join the galaxy. You will receive access to basic council technology. You will be able to travel, trade, explore. You will have the freedom that all council species enjoy." The forest being rustled. "But you will be monitored, observed, for the next 1,000 years. The council will watch what humanity does with its freedom. Watch how you treat other species. Watch whether you become the destroyers we fear or the allies we hope for." Marcus felt tears forming in his eyes. He blinked them away. "You are giving us a chance," he said. "We are giving you a trial," the equation being corrected. "A real trial. Not a test in an arena with monsters and violence. A trial of 1,000 years, where your choices will be your only judges." Velkoth moved closer to Marcus. "You asked us to believe that humanity could be more than predators. Now you must prove it. Not with words, with actions. With centuries of actions." Marcus looked around the chamber. 17 ancient beings. 17 pairs of eyes watching him. "What if we fail?" he asked. "What if humanity does terrible things? What if we become the destroyers you fear? The darkness being answered, then we will stop you. We will have no choice, but you will have been given every chance, every opportunity. No one will be able to say that humanity was judged unfairly. Marcus nodded slowly, and if we succeed? The equation being made a sound that might have been a smile. Then, in 1,000 years, humanity will no longer be watched. You will be welcomed, truly welcomed, as equals, as partners, as friends. Marcus thought about Earth, about all the wars and hatred and cruelty in human history, about all the times they had failed to be good. But he also thought about the other things, the kindness, the sacrifice, the love, the art and music and poetry, the way humans kept trying to be better, even when they failed again and again. We will surprise you, he said. The council stirred. That is precisely what we hope, Velkoff said. She walked Marcus out of the chamber. Behind them, the council began to dissolve, its members returning to their own corners of the galaxy in the corridor. Velkoff stopped. You should know something, she said. Marcus looked at her. I have been fighting for this moment for 200 years. I believed that somewhere in the galaxy, there was a species that could pass the true test. Not the test of survival. The test of wisdom. A crystal form flickered with emotion. I hoped it would be humanity. From the moment we first detected your radio signals, I hoped. You are such a strange species. So violent and so kind. So cruel and so creative. You contain every possibility within you. Marcus smiled. That is what makes us human. Velkoff made her wind chime laughter. That is what makes you terrifying. And wonderful. And worth saving. She touched his shoulder with one crystal hand. It was warm, not cold like he expected. Go home, Marcus Cole. Tell your people what has happened. Tell them about the trial they now face. Tell them that for the next 1,000 years, every choice they make will be weighed by beings who are watching from the stars. Marcus nodded. And tell them this, Velkoff added. Tell them that somewhere out there, in the depths of space, there is someone who believes in them. Someone who has bet everything on the hope that humanity will choose to be good. She stepped back. Do not let me down. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. This alien being who had fought for centuries to give his species a chance. This stranger who had more faith in humanity than many humans did. We will try, he said. That is all I can promise. We will try, Velkoff nodded. For a species like yours, that is enough. A week later, Marcus Cole stepped off an alien ship onto the soil of Earth. He was in a field in Kansas, surrounded by military vehicles and nervous soldiers. The ship lifted off behind him and vanished into the clouds. He was home. The world would want answers. They would want to know what had happened, what it meant. What came next? Marcus looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there, ancient beings were watching, waiting to see what humanity would do with its chance. He thought about the Crucible, about the 20 monsters he had killed to survive, about the test he had failed and the trial he had started. The monsters had been a test, but the real trial was just beginning, and it would last 1,000 years. Marcus smiled and walked toward the soldiers. He had a lot of explaining to do, and humanity had a lot of growing to do. But for the first time since he had woken up in that arena, Marcus felt hope. Real hope. Not because he knew humanity would succeed. He did not know that. No one could, but because they had a chance. A real chance, and that was all anyone could ask for. The stars watched from above, patient and eternal. And on a small blue planet, 8 billion people began the most important trial of their existence, without even knowing it had begun.